record. All right. Welcome. My name is Steve Gurney, Positive Aging Sourcebooks publisher. I'm thrilled to be spotlighting four more villages in the DC Villages Collaborative. And what we'll do first here is just sort of get to know some of the players from the four villages that we are featuring. And so I'm going to start with William. William, tell us your name and what village you represent and how you got involved and what you do with your village.
Okay. Well, my name is Bill Emmett, and I'm the president of Mount Pleasant Village. I've been the president, I guess I'm in my nearing the end of my second year as president. I've been on the board for a couple of years longer than that. Mount Pleasant Village is one of the three villages in the district that are volunteer managed, volunteer run. And so I think compared with some of the other villages, we approach things a little bit differently, but we're thrilled to be part of the broader DC Village collective, or whatever we want to call it. So thank you.
Okay, now Susan, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your village?
My name is Susan Learmonth. I'm with East Rock Creek Village, and I'm the vice president of the board and chairperson of the volunteer committee, and also a volunteer, a regular volunteer for my village. I just guess I want to say that I've lived in my community for a very long time. So this just seemed a sort of natural place for me to be as I retired from work and was looking for some way to give back.
I love it. And I'm going to jump over to your cohort with East Rock Creek Village. David, would you like to tell us about yourself and what you do with the village?
Sure. I'm David Makoff. I'm the board president of East Rock Creek Village. And let's see, I guess I was new to my neighborhood, and someone I knew was told me about that there was a group founding a village in the neighborhood, and I wanted to meet the people who lived around me and get to better know my neighborhood. And so I became part of the founding board and eventually the board president of East Rock Creek Village, and it's a really nice thing to be part of.
Great. And now I'll go to Charles. Charles, if you would like to tell us about yourself and the village that you represent.
Definitely, Stephen. Thank you for having me here and inviting all the villages to be here today. We really appreciate this opportunity. So my name is Charles McCullough. I'm the executive director of the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village. We're the new kid on the block, the young village, launched in 2020. So there's a good cohort of neighbors came together, and just like David, how David came to his village, our cohort of neighbors came together and said, you know what, Ward 5 doesn't have this. And we want to be able to help the seniors in our community be able to age well in place. And we want to do a little differently by focusing on the intergenerational aspect of Brookland neighborhood. And actually, it's more than Brookland. We're the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village. And what makes us a little bit greater than Brookland is the communities of Langdon, Woodridge, and University Heights. And we said, you know, let's all come together and do what we can to make sure that we can have a community where across ages, we provide opportunities for folks to age in place and come together as neighbors. And what brought me to work with GBIV just a few months ago, because I'm also the newest executive director as well, was an opportunity to work in a community. Pete Seeger once said that, I want to turn back the clock when people lived in small villages and took care of each other. And my career up to that point was spent working in the DC public schools as an attorney, working for a national nonprofit as an attorney, and then eventually working for the Embassy of Australia, representing the Australian government's interest. And great opportunities. But one thing that was missing was that opportunity to help in that village context. You know what I'm talking about, Steve? Just to give back locally. And that's what brought me to work for Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village.
Wow, this is exciting, and it's great to have you. And then
Thank you.
your cohort with Brookland is Dr. Amani Woody. Would you like to tell us about your role with the village?
Sure. Thank you, Steve. I echo Charles's remarks on thank you for putting this together and having all the villages kind of speak on how different and how alike we are. I am the president and a founding board member, sort of like William, for the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village. And we're founded on everybody matters in our village. That's why we include intergenerational, and that we're the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village. And what I like about the village concept, I worked with AARP for a number of years. I run another nonprofit that deals with elders, is that the villages, I like the concept of it takes a village to raise a child. And the villages that we create raise children and help adults. It's the whole gamut of from childhood to elderhood. And I just love that concept.
This is great. And last but definitely not least, we've got Denise. Denise, would you like to tell us about yourself and the village that you're with?
Sure. My name's Denise Snyder, and I am executive director at the Foggy Bottom West End Village. I actually came to villages because I got my mother-in-law involved in one of the other DC villages, and took her to many events involved with that village. And then I became a volunteer and then a board member in the village and the neighborhood that I live in. And lastly, I'm on the board of WAVE, which is the umbrella group for DC metro area villages. I just have to say in general that I am so deeply committed to the concept of villages, because although I've worked in what were considered grassroots nonprofits my entire career, villages are truly grassroots organizations because they are, to borrow a phrase, of the people, by the people, and for the people. The folks who are benefiting from it are the people who started it and the people who run it. Some villages like mine have hired staff who make some of the wheels turn, but the key players in any village are actually the members. And I love that concept so much.
Wow. Yeah, that's what impresses me about the village movement in general, is that it wasn't a company that sort of came down on a neighborhood and said, we've got what you want. It was the neighbors coming
Right.
together. And that is the benefit of the villages, but it can also present the challenges because it's, every neighborhood is different and there's not a sort of a script, as you can hear in just the way that you all described each of your organizations. Each of you are uniquely different to your neighborhood and the ideas that your boards have. So let's kick things off with just, does anybody have some unique stories that they'd like to share, or some ways that your village and your organization has impacted the community? And we can kind of use that as the start of an open discussion.
Well, I would just,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not going to tell a long story, but the way you posed the question just led me to think about the way that villages are evolving. And villages, very definitely, I think, started out thinking about aging in place and thinking about members supporting each other. But I think in the last few years, particularly with the pandemic and so forth, we've come to recognize that it's really about aging in community. And so there's a real emphasis that is growing, I think, on understanding more about the communities we live in and interacting more within the community. So something like Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village really is setting a standard, I think, for some of the rest of us to be following, because it is about intergenerationality and it is about interacting with other people in the community. And Mount Pleasant, that's what we're trying to do, we have a community that includes a substantial number of people who are Latino and Spanish speaking and have different needs, presumably, from the needs of most of the village members that we have. So we're trying to understand what those needs are and whether the village has a role to play in meeting those needs. So that's my answer to that question, Steve.
I love it. I love it.
I'd like to add on. Thanks, Bill. I love that, that we're changing and we are evolving. One of the things that we're looking at is how to include everyone and to be more inclusive. So when we say intergenerational, we also mean everyone's welcome in terms of gender identity and expression, in terms of wealth and socioeconomic status, right? Because the history of villages is that it was homeowners who got together, homeowners with a little wealth or little means got together to help each other and hire services to take care of each other. And so we've kind of evolved to include everyone, making it affordable, doing sliding scale types of memberships, doing pro bono kind of work and that kind of thing, and working on what that looks like, because, GBIV, which is the acronym for Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village, we first were all volunteer, and now we have a paid, wonderful executive director over there, right? Because we want to expand our reach, and we really wanted to have the volunteers have a staff person to help them out, and the board have a staff person to implement our vision. So you're absolutely right on the evolution of villages.
I just want to add an element of the sense of community that villages create. We just did a survey, actually all of the villages I think participated over the last several months in a survey, and over and over and over again in the survey, when people were just supposed to write in things about what they valued about the village, the comment over and over was that they joined and they continue to belong because of the sense of community that they get by belonging to a village. I've had so many people say to me things like, I can't walk down the street anymore to the grocery store without running into somebody I know, and just how nice it is to be able to stop and chat. You know somebody's name, you know something about them, you have something in common. It's a true gift of villages, is to help create that sense of community and the social net underneath everyone.
And I know one thing unique that we're doing in Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village is we're having a program where we're actually going to have 3 college interns working with GBIV this semester. So again, it's that expansive idea of community. We, as villages, we work with our local businesses, we work with our local universities, we work with each other, just like Denise was talking about with that survey that we conduct, and we all work together to conduct that survey. But what's unique about us working with our local university and having those interns there, it's also the recognition that, that when we have college students come through, they're not just transient anymore, that they need to be they're integrated into our intergenerational community as well, and they are there even if it's just for the 4 years that they're in university, or maybe they stay a little bit longer for graduate school, but they want to be integrated in this community. We're going to give them a means to care about the community and help those who've been in the community longer. That way it helps us get past some of these issues where it's like, oh, you're young in the community, I'm older in the community, but there doesn't always have to be that friction. And villages are one way that we reduce that friction.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, I love hearing about the evolution, the challenges of communicating. We all realize senior centers have been challenged with this for years, in that they've got great programs, they're doing great work, but because they've got the label and the stigma of a senior center, they're turning off oftentimes the very people that they're trying to attract. And I think what all of your villages are embracing is a sense of purpose, the value of intergenerational connections. It creates this supportive environment that people want to be a part of it. So this is great. Now, let's see, at East Rock Creek Village, what are some of the things that are going on in your village that have sort of brought together community? Whoops, you're on mute.
Okay. Well, I think, we had been doing quite a few things that had a nice feel to them with holiday parties and all the rest. But COVID was a real challenge for us, as it was for everyone. And what was very special, I mean, we have a working board like many, especially the volunteer managed villages, and we really pretty seamlessly went to remote and assessing what's safe and making decisions that we thought would be good for our community, and communicating clearly. We made our membership both free and easier to understand. We innovated along lines with Zoom. We did asking, as with so many communities, actually every community, but in DC, there are many people who are well-traveled and could share their people who've had Peace Corps and international experience. I can see at least one person here in this group, but there may be more, who could talk about their travels, and that was engaging for people. There's so many resources in the city that we can take advantage of. So we were both something that was there for people, to check in on people, and likewise to connect people with each other. And it's been nice to see where we often get people appreciating our giving people information that they can count on, relax, and understand.
Great.
We've also been pretty happy to find that we're someone that people think of when something happens and they need help. Even if they've never had any contact with us before, they may hear from someone about us. And for instance, just last week, we had a woman who had to have one of those appointments at the doctor where you have to have a driver. You can't go by yourself. She takes care of herself otherwise. She had a friend who was going to do it who fell just the day before. So she called us and we looked for a volunteer to take her. And we find that those kinds of abilities to help someone in a kind of emergency situation like that really makes people want to know more about us. And it's been an effective way to get our name out there, so people know who we are and what we do.
This
we
is
try
great.
we try to be both fun and useful, as we all do.
Yeah.
Perfectly
One
put.
of the challenges that you've heard other villages talk about is getting people vaccinations. And we got scores of people vaccinated, linked to their vaccination, and people have been appreciative, and we feel good about it being increasingly part, like as Bill was saying, increasingly part of our community and helping people who are not members who can use help. And that's been a good thing too.
And David, I really want to pick up with the other villages on something that you talked about, is the pandemic, that, and it continues to develop and change and evolve. But for those villages that have been around for a while, not just the villages, but the whole aging services industry has been a very slow tech adopting segment. The villages have really had to get creative and be able to communicate with their members in a different way than having the barbecues and the meeting at the library. Can you all sort of share some of the challenges and solutions in communicating with members, and perhaps what COVID has done to improve the communities that you're all a part of?
The survey that I referred to a few minutes ago, probably the second most frequent comment that came out was how much they appreciated both assistance with vaccinations, either getting signed up or getting to them, and also the information that we shared. And I think that piece was really important. I know our village started sending out newsletters twice a week instead of once a week. There were some villages, at least one I know, that sent them out almost every day because the picture was changing so rapidly here in DC, literally on a day-to-day basis. But I think that we were all seen as the source of reliable information and updates, as well as being the source of reliable services. I think all of us really pivoted on a dime and figured out how to continue providing services while maintaining a high priority on the safety, health, and wellness of both our volunteers and our members, as well as figuring out how to present interesting, fun, educational, challenging programs, doing it on Zoom, which is something that many of us probably didn't even know existed before the pandemic hit. But, we're all pros at it now, as are many of our members.
In Mount Pleasant, first of all, you're absolutely right, Denise. I've been amazed at how quickly our members learned to operate on Zoom, and I think we'll never go back in some regards. But in Mount Pleasant, we were very fortunate in the timing of COVID, in the sense that just a few months before COVID hit, we had initiated a new approach in Mount Pleasant that we call our clusters. It's basically dividing up the neighborhood into micro neighborhoods or micro clusters where that encompass just a few blocks, a handful of blocks in the neighborhood. So we have a cluster coordinator for each cluster. We have about 13 clusters spread across the neighborhood, and those clusters became a really phenomenal way for us to communicate directly and in person with our members. And so the kinds of checkup calls that we felt were really important to make, for example, were all conducted by our cluster coordinators. And that really enhanced that whole sense of community that we've talked about. The other thing was we were contacted at the start of COVID by our ANC commissioners, who said that they were being inundated really with requests to volunteer for the vulnerable people in the neighborhood. And of course, at the beginning of COVID, who did everybody think the most vulnerable people were but the senior population? And so in March of 2020, we initiated with the ANC something that we came to call Neighbors Helping Neighbors. That was a collaborative volunteer effort where those community volunteers, close to 200 of them, of all ages, worked within our cluster system to provide services, to make services available, initially we thought to our elderly, vulnerable members, but we quickly realized that our members weren't really asking for services to any great degree, that it was other people in the community who were asking for things like food aid, eventually asking for help with vaccination appointments and so forth. So we've coordinated that core volunteers that we're now trying to integrate into the village as a more unified volunteer effort. So it was tremendously gratifying to know that the ANC saw us as a suitable partner for that. And it's been just astonishing really to see how we've been able to take that beginning and turn it into something that I think really is going to be beneficial to everybody in the community.
I love it. Any other sort of thoughts on communication technology and the villages?
We do have some people that don't communicate via anything electronic. And so we struggled to figure out how to let them know we didn't forget them and that we wanted to keep in touch. Phone calls help, of course, but we also found that a couple of times we just went and got plants, inexpensive plants or flowers, and then just dropped them off at the person's house with a little note to tell them that we were thinking of them. And people were so appreciative of that. It proved to be much more popular than we had ever even thought it might be.
Wow, that's great. Well, we've really shared a lot of ideas and different ways that the villages are unique and what have you. I would sort of throw out there that let's just kind of make this a free-for-all. If there's anything out there that you would want the world to know about villages in general, your village, let's just, I want to give you the opportunity sort of for the last word, so to speak, and then we can wrap this discussion up.
I'd like
Just-
to,
Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Woody.
thank you, Denise. I was just going to say that I think one of the things that all of our villages have in common is a good relationship with the Department of, I want to say Department of Aging, but it's DACO. I get lost on the acronym. That all of us have a good relationship. And I think this is important as villages move on. I mean, they support us in so many ways, financial and other resources, because as we talk about aging, we're talking about old people, and we want to have a relationship with the city government or state government that allows that we can use the resources that can tell us that many people don't have, as Susan was saying, the wherewithal or even wanting to deal with digital, right? So how do we reach them? And so we worked with a little bit with the Department of Aging and their program to provide computers and computer training to elders, which was that was awesome. And there's some other programs I'm sure you all can talk about that you all have participated in collaboration with DACO.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm so charged up that we're doing this article. Is this is so unique that all the villages in one jurisdiction have come together, and you are so supportive of each other and collaborating. This is really what needs to happen nationwide, and it's not necessarily as easy as one might think, and especially being in alignment with the DC government, the government municipality. You're a great role model for everybody out there.
The Foggy Bottom West End Village manages it's the Department on Aging and Community Living, DACL grant. And I have to say, I've been with the village now for about 2.5 years, and the amount of respect, the amount of openness, the camaraderie that all 13 villages have with each other, the willingness to share. You know, if I need to create a new document of some kind, all you have to do is send out an email saying, has anybody done this before? And, you know, none of us waste time reinventing the wheel. I've never experienced anything like it. And I just think it's one of the things that makes being part of the DC villages just really special, makes the work so much easier, and helps all of us move forward a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. It's impressive.
I'd like to say, I think two related things. The first is, I think besides letting people know what a wonderful thing the present villages are, and how if they're in our areas, they should join, and what a good thing it can be. I think part of the job now is really to inspire other neighborhoods to form their own villages in places that don't have them. and to kind of show them how it's done, to advise, to encourage, because this is a good thing for seniors and a good thing for people. It's good things for a neighborhood feeling, as was said before, for neighbors helping neighbors of all ages. But I think it's just getting the word out and making it as easy as possible. In Montgomery County, they have someone assigned to helping and advising make villages possible, and there's an explosion of villages in that area. I think our challenge in DC and elsewhere is to make it as easy as possible to create a sustainable village. The other thing that I wanted to say that's also related is, just as we villages cooperate, and as Denise is part of, is on the board of, but also that there's the presence of WAVE, there is a national village movement. And while we're all individuals coming from the grassroots, there is an exchange, and there is a growing power of villages to do good things for its people, and to let local governments know about what individuals could use, what improvements there can be in the life of seniors and citizens in general. So we are our own thing, but there is a larger piece that shouldn't be forgotten in an article or in just making people aware that this is a good thing and it's growing.
This is great.
I would just like to add one comment about trying to help other neighborhoods develop villages. I think one of the things that's really helpful is realizing that the village model, as Dr. Woody said, I believe, that it was born out of people who owned homes. It's mostly white, middle class or upper class. And that's on a national basis, not something that's at all special to DC. But as we try to translate that for other communities, whether we're talking people of color, people who speak different language than English, different faith orientations, that the way I think of it is not necessarily trying to help those communities establish villages, but trying to figure out how to help them have village-like services. So the structure and the model may be very different than how we operate now, because, you know, as I said, this is a movement born out of a very specific demographic. And when you change those demographics, you still want to have the opportunities available, but it might look very different from the way we operate right now.
Very well said. And it's the fact that you all are flexible enough to recognize that really is impressive. You know, that this is going to evolve, and it's going to be an evolution, and it's just about making people's lives better.
And I wanted to add that, you know, I am a baby boomer, and I'm on the younger side, thank you very much, of the baby boomers. However, the baby boomers are coming of age, and many are going back to live with their kids in the state, city, neighborhood that their children are living in, right? And it just seems like, at least in my experience, that we're like moving back to the larger compound of not just the nuclear family, right? Not just mom, pop, and kids. It's going back, like in my generation. My grandmother lived with us for a time, and she was around a lot until she passed. And that was the neighborhood. You had a grandmother or an aunt or somebody living with someone, right? Or it was easy to go to Sunday dinners at mom's house. And so I think that just the influx of that happening, that we're building, I think of villages as a communal environment. And I think as children move back to be with their folks move back to be with their kids, and we move closer together to be with each other and to care, that this village concept will continue to grow and expand as we've talked about today.
Absolutely. Just here in Mount Pleasant, that's the experience we're having. I'm fortunate enough to have my daughter and my grandchildren living a block and a half away from me. But I realize I'm hardly unique in that regard here in Mount Pleasant. And we have a strong village presence with our elementary school that so many of these grandchildren now go to. And so it's really gratifying to see those relationships bloom and blossom and create all sorts of other relationships that I don't think would be there before. But I think you're right, Dr. Woody. I think what we're seeing is a larger societal shift, and how the village can adapt to serve the people who are part of those societal shifts is both one of our challenges and one of our joys, I think.
Love it.
All
All right.
I
Yeah,
guess
go ahead.
just on that comment, William, just reminds me, just villages just are and do so much. I mean, as we discussed today, social gatherings, outings, educational events, cultural activities, daily check-ins, like Susan spoke of, health and wellness activities, like Dennis and David talked about, and like William talked about, and also helping identifying and accessing city-provided services, like Dr. Woody talked about. We just are and we do so much. But when I think of what a village means, when David talked about some overseas time, I mentioned Australia, but also before then I spent some time in Italy, and I just am reminded of the words of a poet, Italian poet, his name was Pavese. And for what a village means, I would say a village means that you are not alone, that knowing that in the people, in the trees, in the earth, there is something that belongs to you, waiting for you. And those words, I think that's what captures the heart of what a village is. It's community. It's us helping us, neighbor helping neighbor.
Wow. If it's okay with everybody, that I think is a great way to finish our conversation. And this has been amazing. I can't believe that I've actually got through all of the DC villages here, and I'm really excited to get this transcript put together and get a really cool article and some other things put together that's going to help promote what you all are doing. So
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
you bet, guys.
Thank you too.
And ladies and gentlemen, so with that, I'm going to hit the end button, and you'll be hearing from me. I'll send you all this recording here in the next few hours or so, and then stay tuned, and we'll get moving to the next steps.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys and
Yeah, everybody.
ladies.
Take care,
Good to see
everybody.
you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.